round of applause for our panelists right now. Certainly starting off with, from Notion, Mr. Robbie O'Connor. We also have from Microsoft, Robin Doudoux. From Thales, Samir Abbassi. Amazon Web Services, Paul Lasserre. And from CLA, Renee Hartmann, who will be shaping this conversation forwards.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking today about GenAI for collaboration and communication. So I think it's probably one of the areas where GenAI has had the most immediate impact for everybody in every organization. And it's really, I think, one of the places where organizations have been fastest to adopt. So we're really excited to have everybody here. We have Robin from Microsoft, we have Robbie from Notion, Samir from Thales, and Paul from AWS. So we have a very broad spectrum, a lot of big companies who've worked with everybody from big enterprises to small companies across a number of industries. So I think I'm excited to have such a diverse group of input and interest. So first of all, maybe, Robin, we can start with you. I think Microsoft works with so many large companies and enterprises and helping to address so many of the issues that companies are having today across remote workforces, global workforces, large enterprises that have, silos and different kind of cross-functional approach. So how is Microsoft really approaching working with these particularly large enterprises, but all different companies around bringing GenAI for collaboration and communication?
Yes, so we started implementing AI with Microsoft Copilot, of course, more than a year ago now, into all of the companies actually. So we launched this huge project of trying to actually integrate AI into the tools that employees actually use. And that's how we started, because we realized that there was this actual need of people using AI outside their job, and we're like, okay, how do we bring that the most easily possible? We heard a lot on how hard it is to adopt this new AI tool, so why not implementing that directly inside their flow of work? So that's how we started implementing that, and it's how we started to bring Copilot into the flow of actual work. What we realized from the beginning is that there was a huge impact on communication and collaboration across teams, because people talk different languages, they speak differently, they are working in different hours also, and bringing AI into their flow of work actually help them collaborate, talk to each other, talk more efficiently. And that's for the, I would say, private companies, but we also started to implement that into public groups. And here we are not talking about employees, we're talking about agents that are here for citizens. Which is also a huge impact on how do we help agents talk more fluently and easily to citizens, and addressing the huge overflow of data of work and all of that stuff. And that's basically how we came to this huge Copilot effect that is now here for a lot of huge groups that I hope you are in today.
Great, thank you. And Paul, maybe you can comment a little bit about how AWS looks at different industries. How are you seeing AI? Is it being applied in the same way across industries? Do you see it being different for enterprise versus medium-sized companies? How do you see the difference in adoption?
Sure, maybe to start, I'd say that if you listen to our CEO, Andy Jassy, he compares the advent of GenAI as what happened with the internet, mobile or cloud computing. These are seriously, we're taking the GenAI revolution. And if we step back in communication and collaboration, like the traditional media and channels of communication, collaboration, or modern societies used radio, it took, I think, 38 years to reach 50 million users, 70 years for television, 7 years for the internet, almost 4 years for Facebook, a month, I believe, for ChatGPT. That's the last time I'll talk about ChatGPT, but a month for ChatGPT. So that's how serious this is. So I know we it's these days we look at, is there a bubble? Is it like overhyped? We've already Sequoia 600 billion bubble or Goldman Sachs articles, but that's really not where we're coming from. We invest like deeply into this technology, and indeed use cases of collaboration and communication tend to be the most adopted in the enterprise.
Samir, maybe you can talk. I know from Thales you have a number of different industries. Some are highly regulated, some have security issues. How are you guys addressing using GenAI in the workforce? And do you have to adapt a lot for things like more regulated industries? You know, are there differences across those?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, at Thales, as you said, we have a lot of domains and of applications, going from defense industry to aeronautics. So we deliver, for instance, all the cockpits for your civil aircrafts. So what we try to do actually is first to set, as you said, their environment. So that is to say, okay, we have to have a platform or a cloud, and we have cloud providers here also today, that is very secure. So we had the ability to have also at European level a restricted cloud on which we can put safely all our data. So that is to say, okay, so I have the right playground first to be played with. And then you have to have actually a dedicated use cases. So I love the word from SIA partners, so thank you for saying it previously. Use cases to be able to generate then afterwards value. And then you try to onboard the different people on the project that you would like to collaborate with. So it's, I would say, a special recipe building up from indeed the infrastructure that you have that is safe, restricted when you need to have sensitive environments to deal with. That's the first place. And then afterwards, the right tooling. So indeed, we spoke about OpenAI, but I love the fact that other panelists mentioned definitely Mistral, other models, to be sure that we cope with the right model to the right use cases and even to the right task of collaboration. To be sure that afterwards, everyone seems to be comfortable to use it, and then to be sure that we drain adoptions. So which is the key and severe aspect. And to conclude on the highly regulated, of course, what we also are working with is with authorities. So we've discussed indeed about EU AI Act previously, but we are also working with the ESA, so the European Space Agency. We are working also with the FAA in the US on aviation. So I would say the challenge is also to work with the authorities to demonstrate the value while coping within a safe environment, and then upskilling all of the teams, yet ours, but also our customers, to be sure that it's an end-to-end collaboration and not just us in our side or them in their playground. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and I think you know, you bring up so many good points about how do you kind of, you know, create these you know, sort of permission structures within the regulation and even within the company. So I wonder, Robbie, if you can talk a little bit about, you know, how do you coach companies to start to embrace these AI tools? Do you have them say, you know, it's all at once, go big, put it all through your organization? Do you have them do small starts? How do you kind of work? And I know Notion, you work with everybody from startups to large companies. So how do you kind of get the buy-in and get them to get started?
So it's been a very fascinating period as we've watched kind of the AI revolution unfold over the last couple of years. Our journey with AI started about 2.5 years ago. So we launched our AI product about 3 months before ChatGPT-3 came out. And naturally, the vast majority of our users from startups and scale-ups, they're naturally digitally native. A lot of students, a lot of earlier career people. So we started to see an enormous amount of adoption and uptake on people who are leveraging product like Notion for personal use cases and then working them into their general workflows in work. The confused element within companies were like the bosses and then the senior directors, and you know, they're all getting bamboozled with all the consultancy firms and everybody telling them what they need to be doing top down. And what we kind of observed was, I think the panel previous to us talked about the interns. We love the interns. The interns are the ones who are figuring out the workflows. They're the ones that are doing the battles on the day-to-day basis and figuring out exactly why and where AI is providing value. So Notion's product, very differently to probably a lot of the other companies that are here today, we have a much more PLG-based bottoms-up model. Notion starts in individual users, then teams, then divisions, and then eventually there's a conversation with a CTO once the product is kind of proven value there. So we've noticed with our AI rollouts, that's been a very, very positive way to think about it. Start with a high-level intention on what could be possible with AI within your organization. Implement small proof-of-concept plans initially within small working groups to assess if the value you're looking for can be figured out through workflows. Continuously iterate and look for success and iterate on the success. Consistently communicate as well what's happening and what's not working, and then roll out from there. And I don't think anybody's cracked the code on genuinely saying we can demonstrate absolute value from AI at the moment, and we witness this value playing out in these small wins that happen before you go for larger rollouts later.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point where, I think so many companies are struggling with, you have the kind of top-down directive of, we have to have an AI strategy, we have to do something. And then you have some employees who really embrace it and are big champions of it, and other ones that are hesitant, don't want to use it, reluctant. I wonder if you guys can, maybe Robin, you can talk a little bit about how at Microsoft you're, advising companies to, how do you bring the employees along in the process? How do you get buy-in throughout different parts of the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I think that the sponsorship still is really important. It needs to start from an enterprise transformation perspective, I believe. You need to have this decision coming from the top at least, just to make all of the employees realize that there is something to do. Then I think, and one of the key things we're working on with our customers is to onboard all of the room of the house. So that everybody can realize value with the solutions. So you don't need to bring everybody on the same time, of course. Starting small is great as well, but you need to address all of the people so that everyone feels involved. And as soon as everyone feels involved, people will start to realize their own use cases. And on my side, on Microsoft side, I cannot tell you what your use cases are. You do, and every employee sees their own use cases. And once you have this kind of feeling, this champion feeling that goes on all over the place in the company, that's when we see the value of our solutions. So I think that it starts from, of course, a global decision to transform the organization, and then you ask all of the people, what are your pain points? What are you trying to achieve? What are your managers trying to achieve? Because the value will come from them. We can bring you the tools. I can say that our solution, AI solution, will give you time. That's a fact now. It works really well. Now what do we do with that? And the value will come from that. Do you want to give back times to employees? And if you tell them you need more time, the solution will bring it. You need more creativity? Well, that's how you use it for creativity. You want to spend more time with your teams? That's how you do it. And that's how you embrace people, by showcasing the value they will get from it.
Samir, I wonder if you can share some key learnings you guys have had from doing this at Thales. Have you been doing trainings? Do you share use cases? How are you guys kind of taking these sort of pockets of innovation and success and then spreading them throughout the organization?
Yeah, for sure. I fully agree with what you said, definitely. And I think what we try to do is to have a top-down, a bottom-up, and also an intermediate approach. Exactly. Because indeed, our CEO has the ability to speak AI. So he has to lead also forward to be sure that, as you said, we have a sponsorship, but also we have a mandate that we are coming back to the comfortable with, that at least we can test. We can be in the phase that, yes, we can try the technology. So coming back to the people, process, and technology, definitely, it starts with the people I would say at the right levels. So indeed, from the top, they have also to embrace it for sure. You have, indeed, obviously, and in the classical way, you have the innovators, the early adapters, classically. So you have also to help structure those communities. And this is what we've done, actually, to say, okay, we identified, because we have different domains. So I mentioned aeronautics. We are working in the space industry. We've been working in airports with biometrics and so on and so forth. For each kind of domain, the aim is to relay also to have ambassadors to say, okay, so we have innovators that are able to do the work that will help us scale. So that is to say, okay, identify the right use cases. That's the key point, definitely. That will help us deploy, coming back to what has been said by Oracle previously. So a lot of bugs, but then we have the issue to deploy at large scale. So the aim is to identify what are the key, I would say, ambassadors, the key entities with the different maturity level. So, okay, what is the depth? What that we can achieve actually, and also I was mentioning intermediate. So we have hopefully at Thales what we call a digital factory. So which directly I would say reports to the XCOM, which is I would say an internal lab, which is not that good, but at least to help on this digital subject that are I would say really I would say key to embrace. So when you have a mandate from the top and also the ability to bring the vision, you have users with the identification of the different use cases, and you have an intermediate player that will help, I would say, make, I would say, those two words also speak together. So definitely, so help structure the use cases, help also testing by bringing tools and solutions, by crash testing, that's also the case, and then try to have the right governance at the end. This is what we try to do, of course, and we work with our ISIT definitely also at group level to be sure that everyone is engaged. And it starts also from our guy from finance, legal, HR, and not only guys that are in the business that will deliver maybe the most out of value, definitely, but we have to empower everyone for sure.
Great. I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about, how do we get buy-in within internal organizations. Paul, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about partner ecosystem, right? How can other partners really increase the chances of adoption going across the organization? How do you not fall into doing POCs and then stopping them? Like, how do you really build success by tapping into a broader partner ecosystem?
Yeah, and we often say that 2023 was the year of proof of concept, and 2024 is the year of production.
Is that turning out to be true?
It is. There are still many POCs, but there are more and more production workloads in which partners play a key role. I noticed, Samir, you at Thales, you mentioned the role that SIA partners play, a great partner of ours. We had yesterday in London our symposium with data and AI partners who all got together to share their best practices. We created like a poster of all of these best practices aggregated. I'm happy to share it. It's not Amazon specific. And indeed, when you talk to enterprises, they tell you that they're fine to play around with a POC, which is like fault tolerant, but going to production requires first a good use case to have a positive ROI. That's the number one reason why the POCs don't make it to production. And then you need to have something that is secure, compliant. You need to have the right data foundation in place, the right integrations. And GenAI is a space that is moving so fast that often companies, even the digital native, the more like startup-y, need help. And so whether that's our organizations or partners who come and have the skills to come and assist even the data scientists at these customers to connect all of the dots that are required to go to production makes a difference.
Yeah, speaking of ROI, obviously that's kind of the key, right? Everybody's looking at what are the returns on these investments. How do you kind of take things through, avoid this POC trap of starting POCs and then not finishing them? And Robbie, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you work with companies on how to avoid the POC trap. Are there data, are there metrics that you can work with them to assess the results of some of these productivity projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's very, very difficult for any organization to put a very strong and legitimate handle on the ROI that the efficiency and the innovation that leveraging AI has been producing. I think that work is just happening now. And the analysis comes after the results, but the results are still in process at the moment. Our product was naturally working with startups and scale-ups, and they just like the tool, right? And they just love it and they use it. But when it comes to when we're dealing with much bigger enterprises, that's where you have to go through the justification case in order to warrant the additional $500,000 you're spending on the tool or something. So that was putting us through our paces because we're still a startup and a scale-up ourselves. We work with a number of large automotives. So Tesla happened 10 years ago, right? And every automotive is now trying to become a tech company, right? They're not hiring steel benders anymore. They're trying to hire engineers. And they're trying to create a culture of collaboration, a culture of efficiency. They're trying to they're disrupting themselves in essence. So we worked with a number of these companies who were leveraging AI within their teams. Initially, their design teams, say their engineering teams, they're very forward-thinking kind of teams. And we were trying to measure the success that leveraging AI worked. And we found it very interesting because they were measuring time that was saved from interaction with the tool. they were timesing that against the amount that they were paying people. And they were coming out with really, really wild ROI calculations. It was quite mind-boggling. So I think for 400 users within one of these companies, they were saving about $500,000 in productivity a year. And when they were extrapolating that across thousands of users, when it went outside the POC, it was beginning to start spiraling into the millions, which really caught the attention of the CIO and the group CIO at that point as well. So that was just a small little analysis that we'd done with one of our customers we were working with. But there's many different ways the companies perceive value, that they perceive the efficiency that they're driving as well. And I just think the results are still in flight at the moment.
That's great. It's always nice to have data that you can kind of point to and tell people how it works. I think there's so much of people are learning as they go of what type of productivity they want. Are they refocusing people to other jobs and other areas, or you're kind of getting new, or you're just getting time savings and cost savings? I wonder if we can shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what are some of the questions that you have from customers? What are some of the roadblocks? What are some of the challenges that people are seeing when they're starting to deploy GenAI, especially GenAI at scale with some of these enterprise companies? Yeah, go ahead, Samir.
Yeah. So I think that the first word when we are coming back to Thales is security, for sure. For sure, as we are working on critical mission systems, and this is what we deliver actually, we have to reassure them on, okay, so this is the framework, this is how you can use it, this is where there is some value, and sometimes what to tell them, you should not use it in that case. It's a classical maybe data analytics project that you can also roll out. So previously I've heard the word buzz, definitely. So of course everyone is overhyped, definitely. It drives a lot of investments, for sure. However, we try to help them also distinguish where is the real and the key value. So I would say so, yes, security is a number one, where that comes. And then just afterwards, value. And then thirdly is support. How can you, Thales, leader in critical mission systems and cybersecurity, help us deliver a GenAI experience that is cyber secured and that we can use both internally and also to our ecosystem? So this is definitely the challenge that we see today. Because for instance, just to give you an example, we've been working with the Force and also the DOD, the French DOD actually, and you have a lot of use cases from the battlefield to the people that are in the offices. So the aim is to say, okay, so when you're projecting to surgeons that are in the offices that would like to use GenAI just to compile all the amount of data that they have, the aim is just first to train and to educate them on, yes, doable, not doable within your infrastructures and so on and so forth. And then accompany and support the change. Whether when we speak about battlefield, so that is, okay, how can we help troops on the ground? Actually, you have another concept that comes in order to be sure that if GenAI is good for them potentially or not, is what we call SWAP, which is size, weight, and power. And in those battlefields, or at least in the same in the Navy and so on, in those environments, you may understand that everything has to be miniaturized. They don't have a lot of space. Of course, it has to be autonomous because they have small batteries, for instance, for their equipment and so on and so forth. And the weight, of course, if I'm providing goggles with a GenAI assistant to a soldier on the battlefield, it has to stay very light, also in terms of infrastructure. So it won't bring the GPUs in the backpack and so on and so forth, of course. So what we try to, I would say to work with them is, yes, how can we help you handle those challenges? And I'd say, yeah, security, value, and then support, yeah. I'd say so.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think some of these regulated industries and then ones where you're talking about they're mission critical. Obviously, if you're on the battlefield, you don't have a lot of room for error, right? That's a little different than having a tweet that goes wrong, right? So I think those are really interesting cases where they kind of spur innovation because it's necessity that does that. So I think those are always I think people think there's not innovation in highly regulated industries, but sometimes it's almost the opposite where it's kind of forcing that innovation. So that's really interesting. Robin, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the challenges that some of your clients are having, and what are the things you hear?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say kind of same. So first of all, data regulation. And there are two things on that. There are, first of all, how do we make sure that the AI systems that we are implementing are compliant with the local regulation and the industry regulation? So that's the first thing to do. And depending on that, you can choose either or other AI system. But there's something else that is interesting that I always recommend to our customers is that every company today has trust code on how to use company data, which is not proper regulation, is how to use it and how it's recommended to use it. And more often now I see companies launching their AI trust code. And that's really a recommendation that I have is having a clear way on how employees can use AI systems inside the organization, what you should do with that, what you should not do, what company recommend also to do, and what is not recommended to do is. And then of course you can put like informatical safeguards. But either way, having an AI trust code, I think, is a really great thing. Then, of course, return on investment. How do we measure that? And what I always say is, before even speaking about return on investment, is what are you trying to do? Let's say, for instance, HR, communication, or creativity. Yes, you have quantitative, like how many interviews do you do? How many people do you hire? That's quantitative, you can measure that. But also, if you spend more time, you can do more interviews, you can also spend more time on how do you hire, who do you hire, what profile do you find? And this is what I think is really the value of bringing more creative tool or communication tools, because the HR will not have to spend much time writing down the report or sending formal emails and stuff. They can really focus on being creative. So that's the second thing I recommend. And then support, of course. And by support, I mean adoption at scale. And that's one challenge we have, and what company asks us is, what can you bring us? And of course, we have strong and fantastic partners that help here, because I do really strongly believe that adoption and support at scale comes from going to meet the people directly on site or remotely, but really training them where they are. And this requires time, this requires people, and this we need to have help, and everybody needs support on that. So that's also the framework we are implementing to support customers that want to work with our solutions.
Great, thank you. And Paul, I wonder, you've worked with so many different industries. What advice do you have for companies as they're thinking about implementing their own AI programs for productivity? What are some key lessons you've learned?
Sure, and it's funny, Samir, you mentioned like military use cases. I started my career in the French Navy, and I got intuition for the power of this technology on board like nuclear submarines for like classification, is it a Dolphin or a Russian submarine. And it turns out it's quite powerful for this type of use case. But without going at this level of like stake, I would say that starting with low stake use cases is often like a safe bet for organizations. And that's why we see so many production use cases today that have to do with internal collaboration. Like Smartsheet, which is in itself a good collaboration tool, uses their 3,300 collaborators all use now like a central Ask Me application. We've helped them to build to have access to all type of information. We have talking about partner, AllCloud, a great partner in Israel, developed a 360 solution. It turns out, according to Gartner, that less than 20% of organizations have a good 360 solution internally. They've built something that connect like marketing, sales, support. These are low-risk use cases that we know how to do with different stack today, which limit the risk much more than having even a customer-facing chatbot that might like expose your brands, create liability, give away free product. So that would be the first advice, is to start with use case whose risk is tolerable before going into more customer-facing use cases.
Great. Robbie, do you have any advice based on kind of some of the different work you've done around different scale-up startups? What advice do you have for any companies looking for adopting?
So I think some of the major questions we face on a day-to-day basis, like everybody, is around user adoption and then change management. So they're things that I think we're all actively manage as we go. Additional pieces for type of our classic customer is existing systems integrations as well. So the vast majority of our type of customers use many tools, and they all have some sort of AI functionality now. So how do these things all blend in well together? Because effectively, the power of AI is levered by how you access your knowledge. I think we all love using ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever, but when you have all of your knowledge of your company, your 10 years of meeting notes, of data, of projects, initiatives, if you're able to really unload and unleash the power of AI while referencing that data, that's where the real magic actually happens. That's where the value completely happens. I think aside from that as well, I think the integrations piece is what we also see as being pretty critical in ensuring that these things get adopted super well.
Great, and I think we're kind of nearing the end of the panel. I think it'd be great if maybe everybody could share just your thoughts on where you see things going in the future in the next kind of 3 to 5 years, and just any final closing thoughts you have for the audience here around the future of GenAI and how their company should be tackling it. Maybe Robin, start with you, and we can go down.
Yeah, sure. I'm personally pretty convinced that in a few years from now, every employee will have an AI assistant at work. I don't know which one exactly, I don't know how exactly, but I'm pretty confident of that. And I'm pretty confident as well that it's a necessity. So the sooner the better. Let's onboard all together on this journey. There is an emulation on the market, so let's take this opportunity to do something great together.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about AI as your intern, right? Almost your personal intern, your personal assistant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Samir?
I cannot agree more. Definitely agent, assistant, call them whatever you like, but the aim is to have a very personalized experience, both to yourselves, to your teams, so at different scales. So as an individual, definitely your own assistant agent, and so on. With the team, within a team, within a domain, within an ecosystem. So there's one company to another, to another, to another. So all of this, having an ecosystem of agents that helps you indeed gain productivity. So that's obvious, definitely, but also to generate the right value at the right time, at the right moment. So for me, that is key. And also the second aspect that I would like to add is the ability to have a large variety of very small models, very efficient. So it may be linked also to the agents, but that is to say, you have to do a very specific task. Coming back to what I said previously on the swap, sometimes you don't have all the power that you need, you don't have all the connectivity that you may require. So hopefully we'll get there, starting Creeper and so on. But I really foresee at least that the fact that there will be a large also variety of small models that will help really tackle either very critical use cases or sometimes very niche use cases that we don't have the ability to do with very large model today. And this is where the real value will emerge, for sure.
Yeah, I've heard similar to 2024 being the year of rollouts. I've heard 2024 is the year of small models as well, right? So this idea of specialization and being able to kind of, as people learn more about AI and use it more, being able to kind of really hone into each individual use case across the organization and not rolling it out, one size fits all across the organization. Paul?
Maybe as a tech enthusiast, like many of us, I guess, optimistic. I think GenAI will solve a lot of the problem our world is facing based on the gains of productivity we are seeing. Frankly, comparing to these like internet, mobile, cloud revolution, we've never seen such rapid gains of productivity, which is a huge opportunity for society at large. And I heard in some of the past panels concerns about whether that's like creativity or jobs, displacements. So that's not something we've seen on average. I come from the world of contact center and AI. We've seen a net increase of job opportunities. And overall, I'd say that I love to borrow this quote from I think it's Patrick Ebron, the VP of R&D at Stability AI, who says that tools are not meant to make our life easier. They are meant to give us leverage so that we can push harder. Tools lift rocks. People build cathedrals. So let's build the next generation of cathedrals embracing this technology shift.
Great. I like the optimistic, this is enabling everybody to be more creative, to do new things, to, there was a quote, I think, recently of someone saying, I want AI to do my dishes so I can go out and create more. This idea of how do you take the repetitive things you don't want to do so that you can do more of the things that are really pushing things forward and being more creative. So, Robbie?
So I was a bit of a geek growing up. I'm sure there was a lot of geeks here. The geeks run the world eventually, woohoo. And I used to love Star Trek, right? So I think if you want to see the future, just look at Star Trek, right? So 40 years ago, they had iPads. They could press a button and they could speak in any language to anybody around them. They talked to a computer all the time who could tell them any bit of information they want, who could run any sort of analysis that they want. So if you want to see what the future looks like, just watch Star Trek. And that's going to happen much quicker than we possibly think. I think this panel next year will be so much further advanced than thinking about AI. I don't even think we'll talk about AI because what we see with Gen Z coming into the workplace is this is the new. This is not even new for them. This is just the way that they operate. This is the creator generation. This is the generation that grew up making YouTube videos of themselves. They live on WhatsApp. They're socially different to each other. And that's the generation that this technology now needs to cater for because that's just the teams that embrace this and leverage move so much faster. Within organizations, the teams that don't. Divisions within companies that lever this move so much faster than other divisions. The countries that adopt it quicker move much faster than the countries that don't. That's why it's so great to be here in Paris at the moment, which is definitely the tech ecosystem epicenter for Europe at the moment, and hopefully the world over the next little while. So it's my little vision for where things go.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision. And I think, as you mentioned, next year things are going to be completely different. We'll all be speaking multiple languages at once, and we'll be kind of looking at pursuing our dreams and not doing any grunt work anymore. So thanks everyone for coming, and look forward to next time.